Archer and the Devil.
Welcome to another Archer and the Devil and guest.
Our guest today is the first Irishman to have been to every single country in the world, all 197 of them. He has been to the North Pole. He's done 4 of the 7 peaks. And by the time he's done the other 3 and the South Pole, he will be the first human to have ever accomplished all feats. Mr. Johnny Ward.
Just
Hey guys, how you doing?
Just saying that, we was talking a minute ago and you said, oh, well, it doesn't seem that crazy. But they've sent people to the moon, yet nobody has done everything on Earth yet that you're about to achieve, but they've sent somebody to the moon before that. But that to you doesn't seem a little bit crazy.
It's one of those things that if you had told me 10 years ago or when I was a kid, like when I was 15 in Ireland or whatever, I'd be like, whoa, that sounds pretty epic. But when you're in the middle of it or when you're doing it and you know that you're just a normal dude, then you think, okay, yeah, it's still fun, but if a normal guy can do it, then kind of any normal guy or girl can do it. So it doesn't seem, when you're in the midst of it, it doesn't seem as impressive as it sounds from the outside.
Yeah, but they haven't done it.
Yeah,
That's what the thing we're trying to get across is they haven't done it, but they've gone to the moon. And at no point has it seemed like anybody else has gone, actually, that's like I could do this. That seems like a doable thing.
Is there anybody else who is trying to do this before you do it? Are you running up against anyone, or is this just you out there by yourself?
No, there's an old rich guy who's done something similar, but thankfully he hasn't done all the countries. It's a kind of complicated situation about what's a country and what's not, but basically he has finished and now he won't. So
I was going to say, because you
should have a free run at it.
Because you've done 197 of the UN recognized countries, but then you've also done like Tibet, and Tibet should be the 10th biggest country in the world. So if you accumulate countries that aren't recognized, how many have you done?
I reckon from more of a moral standpoint than a technical standpoint, there's probably 215 is probably a fair country count, I would imagine. And I'm on 214 of that.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe if you include Nui, there's 2 countries in the Pacific Islands in the middle of nowhere. One called countries, or anyway, however you want to refer to it, sovereign nations. Cook Islands, who you might have heard of. Some people go like for holidays there, and then an even smaller one nearby called Niue, Niue. But strictly speaking, it's unlikely that you guys are going to have listeners from there. But if you do, they'll be offended by me saying. They actually belong to New Zealand. So, I mean, morally they stand alone, and culturally and ethnically they are their own nation. But, I mean, from a technical standpoint, they do belong to New Zealand. So, I mean, it depends how you look at it.
Is that on your list as well now, just to have been able to say 215?
Yeah.
I've done all of them. Not only the ones that the UN recognise, but even the ones that recognise themselves.
Yeah, I'm going to go on honeymoon to them, I think.
Oh, okay.
That's a good idea.
That is a very good idea.
That's a good. I mean, that ticks many boxes. Then, doesn't
Yeah.
it? That's because I read in your bio, it said that you chose Norway as your last one to go to, so all your family and everyone could join you as well. I suppose that kind of ties in with the honeymoon in the last one as well. It's like he's not daft, is he?
No, he's not at all.
He's not daft.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
Do you want to, for people who,
Yeah.
for the people who don't know your story, do you want to just give a quick summary on how you went from Ireland to 197?
It doesn't have to be quick. You take your time.
Well, yeah, you can take your time, to 214 countries.
The brief version is obviously I'm Irish, you can hear from my accent, but I was born in the Republic of Ireland, and my dad wasn't the greatest guy. My mum had a big hard time with him in and out of prison and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we ended up moving to Northern Ireland, changing our names and all this stuff. So then I grew up in welfare, single parent, just my sister, my mum and me. And then I lived in Northern Ireland until I was 18, broke, but like my mum always really supported me emotionally and always taught me to be, okay, we didn't have any money, but to believe in myself and I was capable of doing anything and blah, blah, blah. So 18 then, went to university in England. At that point, I'd only ever left Ireland or the UK once because we didn't have any money to go on holiday or anything growing up. And then I went to university in England for 4 years. and each summer at uni, I went to Loughborough. I worked on summer camps in the USA, special needs camps. So then that kind of gave me the flavour for travelling a little bit. And then 2006, I graduated. So I'm 36 now. So that was 14 years ago. Whatever it was. Yeah. 40, yeah. I finished my last exam in the summer of 2006 on a Thursday. And then the next morning, Friday, 9 a.m., I flew to the USA for another summer camp. And then I never lived in the UK or Ireland ever again. I never came home properly from then. And that was obviously 14 years ago. So then the whole every country thing, I did a summer in the US, and then I came back to see my mum after being in the US. And I was like, okay, growing up poor, I always wanted, like, I kind of got an issue with money, or not actually of having money, of not having money, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. It's kind of, which I can joke about now because I'm financially comfortable now, but like, it gives me anxiety and stuff thinking about it growing up. I remember my granny gave me 50p for pocket money when I was like 12 years old. And I remember leaving Sunday dinner early to put it in my mum's handbag because I knew she was broke and the 50p could help her. And she doesn't even know this story, actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, to cut the long story short, I studied finance at uni, and I planned to do a gap year after uni, and then go back and move to London and work in finance so I could be rich, basically, because I was over being poor. So I did, and then after my summer in the US in 2006, I wanted to travel for a year, but I had no money, just student loans. I had the max loan and max overdraft and all that, like loads of people. My mum couldn't give me any money to travel. She didn't have any herself, nor is it her responsibility. So then my only way to do a gap year was to work and travel. So I ended up teaching English in Thailand, in Chiang Mai in the north of Thailand for a year. And during that year, 2006 to 2007, I kind of had a big epiphany that, yeah, I still want to be financially free, but the goal of just being wealthy for being wealthy's sake was a wasted journey. And I just had such an amazing year. Still broke. I was making maybe 450 quid a month teaching English in Thailand, but just had the best year of my life. And I was thinking, like, this is how I want to live my life. I want it to feel like it's an adventure, and I'll figure out how to be financially free a little bit later down the line. When you're 23, 24, the romance of or being broke and traveling is romantic, and it's the best way to travel. Actually, now I've got money and I'm 10 years older. You can't go back to those days when you're broke, traveling, like living off $10 a day. It was cool, and I really recommend people to do it. And then, I had a big epiphany during that year, and I never got a real job, never went home. And then I ended up starting my blog. And then I heard that no one from Ireland had ever visited every country in the world. And then I made that my goal to do that before I was 35. And I finished that in 2017. And then during that kind of I started my blog in 2010. So I was still traveling. After I finished teaching English in 2007, I had 3 years bumming around Asia, having fun, running out of money, teaching English in Korea, travel some more, run out of money, back to Korea. And then I started my travel blog in 2010, after a couple of years of bumming around. And then from 2010 to 2020, obviously this year, my blog just took off and started generating revenue. And then it gave me the freedom to finish that journey to every country in the world and to start climbing all those mountains and all these wild ultramarathons and North Pole and stuff, because all that stuff is cool, but it's bloody expensive. Yeah. But now my blog took off and it allowed me to be able to do it, and that's where I am now.
That's a crazy story.
It's
such a crazy story.
I was in then. I was fully engrossed in that whole conversation. Then I was like, I forgot I was even doing a podcast. I was just there.
Yeah,
that was insane.
So, what had you climbed mountains and stuff like that before with the ultramarathons? Is this stuff that you just one day looked at and thought, "Oh, I could probably try that"?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about your upbringing, but if you grow up working class, single parent on benefits and all that, the thought of, like, I've never skied before. I didn't know how to swim. Like, I've got no dad either, so I don't, like, no one teaches you anything if you're broke. You know what I mean? All that kind of climbing mountains and sailing and all that kind of stuff, it's for posh people. So I'd never done any of that stuff. And then then the weird thing about making money online is you can just if you get a normal job and you get paid 20 grand, and then as you get older, it's 30 grand, 40 grand, maybe continues to increase a little bit, and you're like, oh yeah, you're comfortable. But when you make money from blogs or YouTube or Instagram or your own online company or whatever, you can go from broke to having quite a chunk of cash in a few months.
Yeah.
It's weird. And again, because I don't come from money, I didn't know what to do with all this money. so then I started doing cool stuff. Yeah, like that. A couple of years ago, I did this thing called the Marathon des Sables, which is 6 marathons in 6 days in the Sahara Desert. And I heard, basically, I think like, okay, I want to do a marathon. Everyone should do a marathon. Even when I was broke, I thought that, or climb a mountain. I think people should do these kind of experiences. Life's short. You want to do as many cool things as you can. Yep. And then I thought, if you're going to do a marathon, you might as well do an ultramarathon. And if you're going to do an ultramarathon, you might as well do the hardest one in the world.
We started this whole podcast due to mine and his love for travel. I used to race cars, so I've travelled, but in a different way to what Sonny has. In terms
I was
of,
more the $10 a day with a backpack and a map and just let's see where I end up kind of person.
Where I was work my ass off and travel to the country or whatever, but I didn't really see that much because obviously I was at a racetrack, so you get a taste, but you don't get to experience. Whereas it's got some crazy stories of, like you've just said, living on $10 a day and doing all this sort of crazy shit. And I'm like, well, we've got a great love of travel, and everything that you just said there was what started this whole thing. It was like, even if we do start making money off the podcast or whatever, we would always put that back into doing more cool shit, meeting more cool people, doing it in different cool places. Just.
I think that's one thing. I found your story or came across your story about 2016. At that point, you hadn't been to every country. And I remember, I can't remember if it was on BuzzFeed or somewhere. You'll probably know better than I will. But it was picked up at that point that this is a guy who's traveled to 150 out of 160 out of all the countries. I'm like, went on your Instagram, and your Instagram feed is
porn.
It's porn. If you are into travel, that is the most porn Instagram page in the world. Because, well, you've been to all of them for a start, so that helps. And kind of like just followed you along from there. And I think the thing is, especially for someone who had ambition to want to travel, I think because I didn't start traveling until 2015, I backpacked around Europe for a few months, then did Southeast Asia, and then did Canada to Patagonia.
No.
That one was, it's still, for me, that's the best one I've done. I don't think, that was the one I kind of like always wanted to build up to. Like, I'd never really been away properly, so I went to Europe thinking, at least it's one flight home if anything goes wrong. And when nothing really went wrong, it was like, well, I can go further now. So I went to Southeast Asia for 6 months and nothing went wrong there. So I was like, fuck it. So flew to Seattle, took 2 flights, I think one from LA to Mexico City and from Panama to Colombia, and the rest was by land. And people like you were the kind of like fuel to be like you said, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I have that same kind of mentality of like, which is why we kind of did start doing this, was almost not only just to share our stories, but to try and get other people, not for the monetary side of it. If you can, I think the one thing that inspires me about you is the fact that you didn't go, I want to be rich so I can travel. It was, I just want to sustain that. I want to be able to do this. And if I can fund it by doing it, then better. I mean, obviously it's worked out well for you as well, because you made $1 million from your blog. Is that right? From sharing.
I think that's maybe when you first came across my story, which is both beautiful and sad. It represents the media's pernicious attitude, really, because I had been blogging then from 2010 to 2016 when my story first went viral, and I'd been blogging about and trying to tell people, like, listen, you can come from like working class, single parent backgrounds and still do this. Gap years aren't just for like richer kids and blah, blah, blah. And no one really took notice apart from my mum and my granny and my mates reading my blog. And then I made my first $1 million in 2016 from my blog, and I wrote just a normal blog post saying how I made $1 million in the last 3 years, and it went viral. And it's still ticking over now. Yeah,
so I guess rather than the acclaim for, or the notoriety for having accomplished that, it was more, well, look at how much money you earn doing it.
Exactly.
I mean, it makes it easier, I suppose, and takes that fear away of being able to, will I be able to do this country or that country? But I think one thing is that, like, having that, there are people, I think, people who have traveled have that mindset of the freedom of it rather than I want to earn money doing it. And that is one thing that comes across with you. It's kind of like, I want to travel to be free rather than I want to travel to make money.
Well, that's it, mate. I mean, what more can you ask for? Especially like when you're still relatively young. I don't have kids yet, hopefully in the next few years. But when you're still relatively young, you're still healthy and fit to be able to have the freedom just to do what you want is just the greatest life you can live.
My dad said to me when I turned 30, it was pretty much the day of my birthday, and he turned around to me and he said, "You know what I had when I was 30? I was like, "What's that, Dad?" He went, "I had 10 grand in the bank." I was like, "Okay." And he went, "Well, I had 10. What have you got?" I was like, "Well, I haven't got 10 grand in the bank, that's for sure." "Well, what have you been doing with your life?" I went, "Well, doing shit, seeing shit, meeting people." I said I could go to, 20 countries in the world now and go and stay and it not cost me a penny or whatever. I said, "You can't say you can do that." "Yeah, but you haven't got 10 grand in the bank." I was like, I don't see the relevance of, I can always make money. Like, that's not going away. But I can't, he can now lie on his deathbed. He's 74 now. And I said, genuinely now, if you lay on your deathbed, would you be happy with your life? And he said, "Well, yeah." I said, "But would you?" He said, "Well, I've always worked. I've always had a good job. But I said, "Yeah, but you've done nothing. Like, been nowhere, done nothing, like, nothing." He's like, "Well," I was like, "Well, that's why I fucking skinned. And that's why I'm more happy than what you are, and I'm still skinned." Because he just couldn't, I don't know if it's a generational thing or whatever it is, but he just couldn't understand the concept of wanting to see stuff and do stuff.
Experience stuff.
Yeah, rather than not spend the money doing it. Like,
my
put
dad's
it in the
the
bank.
same. My old man, I think it is partly generational because my dad's 65. Like, we're both, he's 37, I just turned 38. And I think it is that generational thing of kind of like, also having fear for your kids, I suppose, as well, of like, make sure you're secure, make sure you have a home and a good job. And like, my mum didn't really start worrying about me until I said I was going to Central America, and she was like, because she doesn't know much about the world, but my dad obviously is a bit more knowledgeable on world events. So he'd be like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "Oh, all of them." He's like, "Honduras." I'm like, "Yeah. He's like, "Isn't that the murder capital of the world?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, but I'll be all right." And it is a bit, I think when other people start panicking, then I start going, "Wait, should I be going there?" But then it's never as bad as it's made out to be anyway.
Never, mate. Never. Although, having said that, when you start going to places like Mogadishu and Kabul and stuff, actually, it is kind of as bad as it's made out.
Right, okay. I was going to say, because some of the places I've been, I mean, there's never been like a war going on. Whereas some of the places you've been to, I mean, all of the places you've been to, there's definitely going to be some in there. Are there any, regarding your experiences when you have travelled, are there any that kind of like surprised you in terms of, for better or worse, places you weren't really kind of like particularly looking forward to, and it was just I'm going to take this one off the list that blew you away, or places you were really cautious of going into that kind of like just completely shocked you?
I tell you, like, this idea of visiting every country in the world, and on social media and stuff, so many people message me, or you just hear people talking about it in the pub being like, "I wish I could do that," or "I would love to do that if I could afford it." But people don't really understand how hard it is to visit every country in the world. Like, yes, it's expensive, of course, but that's far and away not the hardest thing. The hardest thing is like being on your own for years on end, sorting out visas, getting arrested, paying bribes to police, going to dangerous places, and you're just constantly thinking like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get to the next place? And it's tough. And then also, when you're like, if you're going to the Thai Islands, or you're going to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, it's easy to ask your mates or your family, "Hey guys, you want to go here? We'll go for a booze up somewhere cool around the world," and people want to go. When you're telling them you're going to Libya or Yemen, you're going on your own.
And they're not talking to you till you get back.
Yeah.
I think that is one thing with travel. I don't think anyone sees the travel days, the sitting in departure lounges, the 4 days on a bus, the stuff like that. Everyone only sees your pictures on the beach or having dinner at a nice restaurant. So yeah, people don't see the difficult side of it. And it's definitely like,
it's the difficult side that makes it so enjoyable. I spent 2 years, there's 49 countries in Africa. I spent 2 years in Africa visiting them all in 2 kind of 1 year stints. One time from the bottom, from Cape Town all the way up to Cairo, and then on into Syria, 1 year. And then also from Cape Town up the other side, up the west coast, up to Casablanca, and another year. And when you're starting going through countries like Democratic Republic of Congo and Chad and Niger and all that, like, that is just scary shit. And you get all the stuff, like, you still get the 15-hour bus journeys, but it's not buses. You're in like kind of people carriers that look like hearses, and there's maybe 6 seats, but there's 18 people, and you're in it for a day. And you're on your own. And half the time you're like, fuck, this is the worst experience of my life. And the other half, you're weirdly thinking like, this is the coolest experience of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had a 12-seater in Guatemala with 37 people on there, and I'm 6'3". I'm a big dude, and Central Americans in general are quite small. So 3 of them were sat on me just because they were like, "You're taking the room up, so we're going to have to sit on you." And it is that thing of like when you're on there and you can't breathe properly, the temperature's ridiculous. It's like, what the fuck am I doing here? But at the end of it, you've got the story.
Personal space is a privilege that in the West we're blessed with. As soon as you leave, that concept's out the window.
Yeah.
It's sort of stuff that you don't even think about. Like you just said, you see the highlights, but you don't see the actual real nitty gritty, like what actually goes into it. Like you just said there, like you spent 2 years just visiting Africa. Like when people think of, oh yeah, it's Africa, you think, oh, it's one place.
I mean, I don't.
Well, no, but majority of people. But then
do.
you think, well, actually, it took you a year to visit every country just on that.
On one side.
On the one side.
On the one side.
On the one side. And then you think, shit, that's one small part of the world, and you've still got to do all of the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's insane to think about. How many?
Part of the reason that was so slow was because they did it all by public transport, so nothing was organised. That was just one step at a time.
Just popping onto each one.
I think if you book it through those big expensive tour companies and you've got one of those big overland trucks and all, I think it'd be a bit quicker and a bit easier.
Those big
but then
expensive tour companies.
I'm just trying to sort out the logistics.
Yeah.
But then it all comes down to, like you say, if you've got £10 million to splash on, right, I've got £10 million budget, I'm going to go and travel to every country in the world. You probably do it, a quarter of the time.
Helicopter to every country.
But that's it. But literally, all you're doing then is just ticking boxes.
Did you have rules, like self-imposed rules for what classes as a visit? Because some people will stop at an airport and go, "Oh, I've been to that country." It's like, no, you haven't. So do you have...
I know. I'm sure you guys saw a couple of people go viral over the last couple of years. The quickest person to do it, the quickest woman to do it, and all this. And I just think it's bullshit.
If you're just doing it to tick off a list, then not experience anything, then great. But so what were your rules for it? Do you have to spend 24 hours there or a week there? Or
I think for me, Sonny, was I really didn't need to kind of attribute any rules to it because I was doing it because I love traveling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I wasn't rushing in and out anyway. And also, so let's say 197, so let's say it's 200 countries. The first 100 that I did, I was doing it on $10 a day. So I would be working, I couldn't afford flights. I went like 3 or 4 years without flying. So I would just work region by region. And the only way I'd be able to get out of that region is literally by visiting every country on the way through until I reached the border of that region, which is that first year I did in Africa and then moved into the Middle East. And then it was the next regions in the Middle East. So I didn't really have to worry about nipping in and out because I was doing everything over land. So I'd be in a country for weeks and weeks and weeks just to get from one side to the other anyway.
Right, okay.
Was you having to work and stuff along the way? Or like if you needed to, was you just like looking for jobs or doing bits and bobs? Or
So the way it all started was like after I got back from when I finished university, I did another summer in the USA. Then I came back and I was like, right, I'm going to take a gap year, but I don't have any money. And I wanted to. Then I found out about teaching English in Asia. Again, I couldn't even afford the flight to Thailand or the English teaching diploma, which is about grand. It's called a CELTA. The diploma allows you to teach English. So I ended up like. I just feel like life always comes down to how much you want to do something, and it's easy to say you want to do it, but where are you willing to put your money where your mouth is and sacrifice stuff to make it happen, or are you just going to live your normal life and pretend that you wanted to do it? Anyway, so I didn't have any money, and I ended up doing this medical research thing in Belfast in Northern Ireland, where they lock you in the hospital for a month, and you're not allowed any visitors. You have to eat 4 meals a day. You have to eat everything they put in front of you, whether you like it or not. And I had to give blood 18 times a day. Still got a scar on my arm where they stuck. And anyway, that gave me about £2,000 sterling, so about $3,000 for that month that was locked in there. It was brutal. And then with that money, I got a one-way flight to Thailand, 400 or 500 quid, whatever it was, and then paid for my English teaching qualification, another 1,400 quid. So there was the $2,000 gone. But that was like the catalyst for my new life. Then I was in Asia. I studied my teaching qualification in Thailand too, and then I found a job here just by going door to door and to schools in Thailand. And then once someone gave me a job, that was really it. And I was kind of still broke, but living adventurous, fun life. And I feel like it's very easy to share an Instagrammable quote and be like, feeling like you want to change your life, but people aren't willing to do it, are they? So whereas I feel like I am willing to do it if I say I want to do something and mean it.
Well, you've bled for it, so
literally bled for it. It's much easier to press that share button, isn't it, and go, "Oh, I want to be here," rather than actually taking yourself there.
How much does it piss you off, given that you have literally bled for it, and not a little bit, but 18 times a day bled for it? How much does it piss you off when people are like, "You're so lucky"?
I'll tell you what that pisses me off a little bit because I don't believe in luck, but I'll tell you what pisses me off more. Last weekend, what day is it today? Saturday. Last weekend, me and two friends ran an ultramarathon from Chiang Mai to Chiang Rai. It was 200 kilometers over 2 days, right? It was horrific. My feet are still recovering. We ended up in hospital, but we finished it. We were raising money for COVID-affected families in Thailand, right? One of the guys in the gym, he's like a online fitness guy in great shape here. He's always uploading stuff on Instagram, like, you know, those that photograph of like a cat looking in the mirror and then a lion looking back in the reflection. Yeah. Which is, I do love all that stuff, but I feel like I actually represent that, the words that they say. I try to live by them. Yeah. But people who put that don't believe it. Anyway, so he's always putting stuff, be the best you, life begins outside your comfort zone, all this shite. And then we were like, right, mate, we're going to go and do this 200-kilometer ultramarathon, Chiang Mai to Chiang Rai. We've never done anything like it before. Do you want to come? Oh, no, mate, that's far too hard. I'm not doing that, sorry.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so it's easy to share the post, but to live it is a different fucking thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that same day that he turned us down, he's uploading that shit again. He's got loads of followers. I'm not going to tell his account here, but I'm just thinking, you're just full of shit, mate.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the ultramarathon thing? Are you one of those? Because I'm very much like the kind of person who I will tell people if I have a trip in mind because it forces me to do it. Because I don't want to be the kind of human being who talks about something and then never ends up doing it. Because there's so many people who like, oh, I would do that, or I'll do that in 5 years. So rather than living like that, I'm always like, you know what, I'm going on this date. So, and because I've told everyone I have to do it, because I don't want to be that guy who... Is that what you're like?
Yeah. But then I kind of have this like disability that when I think about doing something, if I've got a crazy idea, once it enters my head, then if I don't do it, I feel like I'm the biggest coward ever. And that's how that ultramarathon thing happened. And a couple of months ago, I cycled the length of Thailand because we couldn't leave the country, right? It was in lockdown. So then I cycled from the Malaysian border to the Burmese border, 2,000 kilometers. And the reason that happened was like, I was like, what can I do? I'm stuck in Thailand during COVID. I was like, I could maybe cycle the length of Thailand or something like that. But I've never cycled before. I don't know a bike or anything. And then I was thinking, and then once it got in my brain, I was like, well, I'll have to do that. What am I scared? Am I scared to do it? I must be what? And then anyway, so I did that. And then the same thing happened with the ultramarathon. I was like, oh God, right, well, might as well do it then.
Might as well do it.
I mean, there's having ideas. And then there's having Johnny ideas.
I don't even want to talk about what I did during lockdown in comparison. It's like,
what can I do? I'm stuck. Let's go cycle. I've never cycled before.
And it's not like it's a small country either.
No,
like
exactly.
From top to bottom, that's a big fucking country to cycle. How long did that take you?
12 days. I was bleeding from the inside of my leg. Brutal. Couldn't move my little finger for about 3 weeks. It's just starting to come back now. I can't move it properly. Because I've never held a bicycle. I've never been in. I didn't know what a road bike is, but I know now. It's those ones that you lean over on.
Right.
And I rented one of those. And then it puts loads of pressure on different parts of your hand that you've never used. So I couldn't move like these little fingers for weeks and weeks.
It's not a normal thing. I don't think he's a normal guy.
But there's a lot of it which is like, that's amazing. And some of it where I'm like, are you okay, Johnny?
Yeah.
Like,
is that good? Are you sure? Have you had a bump on the head at some point?
But this is the thing, though. Like, once you start making decisions to do cool stuff and fun stuff, and then you just about get away with achieving it, then you realize once you've broken through that, you realize like actually you can kind of just do anything as long as you commit to it. I mean, that commitment is, I think, 95% of people's issue.
Yeah, I think that's. I know on my memories last week came up when I first went indoor rock climbing. I'd never rock climbed before, and now have climbed mountains and stuff. So it's like it does take sometimes. As soon as the idea's in your head, and you look at something and go, "I want to do that," it's like, well, rather than want to do it, let's just go figure out if I can.
Yeah. Do you guys know? I'm sure you do. David Goggins.
Yes. Yeah.
That guy. It's like They call himself the hardest guy in the world. I love him. Anyway, he's got this concept called the cookie jar, right? Which is things like when I did that cycle and my ass was bleeding and everything, you still got to keep continuing the next. What are you going to do? Quit? No. Okay. So you keep going, right? And then eventually you achieve your goal, whatever it was, or this ultra that we did last weekend. It was brutal. My mate ended up in hospital. And that was the first time he had ever done anything hard before. He used to be overweight, and then he's been training with me during COVID, and now he's fit, and then now he's done this ultra. And anyway, David Goggins has this concept that you have this cookie jar in your mind, right? And once you start doing loads of cool shit and epic stuff and difficult stuff where you've really challenged yourself, each one of those events is a cookie, and you whack that cookie in the jar, right? So then once, for me, if I've done that cycle, the Marathon des Sables, I climbed those mountains, the marathon at the North Pole, blah, 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 and all those are cookies. So the next time you're doing something brutal that you're just ready to quit and you're crying to yourself and it's hard, you just go back and you take one of those cookies out and you eat the cookie, and you're like, no, I've been in this position before and I achieved it. Don't be a pussy, just fucking keep going. But the hardest thing is filling the jar up with the first cookie, because you've got nothing to go back to know that you've dug deep and faced your fears and risked failure, and you're in agony and you might end up in hospital or injured, and you achieve it. So the first one is so hard, but once you start accumulating those cookies, then any other thing that you do in the future, even if it's a more physically daunting challenge, it actually becomes progressively easier, because you can reflect on all the times that you've been in shitty situations before and push through it.
Yeah, I mean, especially with David Goggins, he would call you a bitch and a pussy the entire way through, not doing it as well. So, because he is that kind of person. What is once you've done the 197 countries, 215 countries, you've done North and South Pole, and you've climbed your 7th mountain. What's after that? Or is this something, get to this first
retirement
and then
on the beach?
I don't think he's ever going to retire on the beach, to be honest with you.
I actually hate sand, which is one of the reasons why I did that Marathon des Sables in the Sahara. Because I thought, like, I fucking hate sand, so face your fears and all that. Anyway, I thought about doing this cool thing. No one's ever done it before. We'll talk about it in a second, about rowing the Atlantic. But I was thinking, like, imagine going around the equator, all human powered, either running or cycling, and then rowing both oceans in one continuous loop around the whole globe. It would take maybe 2 years or something. That'd be cool.
I definitely think he's had a bump on the head.
A couple.
I think it's been like some sort of injury in the past that you haven't realised has happened, and it's turned like the rational thinking side of your brain off, because it's absolutely, it's making me sweat just thinking about it. It's absolutely mind blowing. I just can't. I mean, I suppose it's perception, isn't it? Like everyone has a perception of what risk is, and like you've just said, the more you push that, the more easier it becomes to just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. Like, I suppose that's what you was meaning about the cookie jar thing. Like with my racing, it was, I never in a million years thought that I could ever achieve what I did, because it just wasn't attainable. It was, racing's a rich man sport. You need money, you need this, you need that. But then I eventually set myself up in a job where I could earn the money, and I had to obviously work the hours. But then it starts opening the doors, and then once you were through that first door, the rest just kind of just open themselves, and you just go, well, the door's open now. It's up to me whether I walk through it or not. And that's the issue. Then is it's just taking that next step and going, I can do this. Yeah. Why not? Let's do it. And then the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and then you end up walking around the equator.
But then it's your concept of risk. It's a bigger risk to live a boring life.
No, 100%.
Cold, dark night, trying to go to bed beside a wife that you don't really love anymore. Your kids are a little shithead. You're broke. You've forgotten all your dreams you had when you were 12 or 13 or even 16, 17 as you became an adult. And you're like, what the fuck have I done with my life? Yeah. Like, that is, you talk about risk. That is the biggest risk of all. If you feel like that, like, God, that's the worst thing you can do. You know, it's such a gift to be healthy, to be capable of doing whatever you want to do, and then to have those gifts and choose not to do them. That's a real risk.
That's the worst thing in the world.
I do think a big problem we have with the whole, obviously mental health become a lot more important and more spoken about in the past couple of years. I think the biggest problem is a lot of people tick off I've got a job, I've got the wife, or I've got the husband, I've got the kids, got the house, got the car. Why am I miserable? Oh, it must be me. Rather than thinking maybe I've just got the wrong blueprint. Because I know for myself, when I've traveled, I am my best me. When I am dirt broke, don't know where I am, on a bus in the middle of fucking nowhere, and don't know where I'm going to sleep, or don't know where I literally just was. That's me at my best. That's the challenge ahead of like not knowing language, not knowing geography of where you're going to go or anything. That's when you excel. Yeah. And when you do just have that mundane 9 to 5, and if people want it, that I'm not criticizing. If they want to go do it. But I think once you've tasted something that isn't that and realized how much you can bloom under it, going back to it's a really fucking hard thing to do.
Yeah, I feel like the 9 to 5, there's nothing wrong with the 9 to 5 as long as you've sampled something else and then chosen to go back to the 9 to 5.
Exactly. Yep.
The problem with 9 to 5 is people adopting that at an early age, never seeing anything else as possible, and then assuming that that's all there is to life and feeling that something's missing. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And then blaming everything else.
They're blaming themselves and going, I must be miserable, maybe I need medication for it, rather than maybe you just need to change your life plan a little bit.
I read in your, I think it was Wikipedia.
Yeah, you do have a Wikipedia page, which is impressive.
And it mentioned some questionable means of getting into some certain countries that, and you touched on it earlier regarding,
bribes.
Yeah, and places that perhaps you shouldn't have been, and
smuggling in
stuff like that. How is that even like? If somebody said, right, we're going to go to a certain place that you can't get into,
say Yemen,
how do you even start that thought process of going, right, I need to get into there. There's a civil war going on. They're not going to just let me in at the border. Let's make this happen. How is that even how do you even start that thought process?
It's just weird now. You talk about Yemen and also Iraq. Like, I got really strong, powerful contacts in Yemen and Iraq now, and I can just get people visas for Yemen and Iraq.
So you can hook us, if you want to go to Yemen and Iraq, you can hook us up.
It's so weird. Like, I know a guy, I can't tell you where it is, but if you send me your passport, I can get you a visa for Iraq tomorrow, and Yemen also, without even having to go to the embassy. It's wild. And like, I'm just some weird guy and then through traveling to these places, you make these contacts. The scariest one was, I was trying to get a visa for Libya. It's a failed state, and ISIS have moved in the east, and it's actually really sad what's happened there post-Gaddafi. And I was moaning on Facebook or Instagram, and when I was in Africa in that second year that was there, saying I really need to get into Libya. I was on maybe 160, 70, 80 countries, coming to the end of my country, thinking, this is brilliant, but I can't get into Libya. It's going to hold my whole thing back. And then some guy DM'd me saying, my dad was one of the big players overthrowing Gaddafi. He said, in this certain city that I don't want to mention. And he's like, I'm like, okay. He's like, listen, if you fly to Tunisia and take a train into the south of Tunisia to a city called Sfax, he's like, we know people in Tunisia, and if you just go to the airport there and fly to a city in the east of Libya, where I'm from, they won't ask you for a visa. My dad will tell him you're coming, and then I'll meet you at the airport and tell immigration to let you in. And I did, and I flew to Tunisia and took that night train down to the south of Tunisia. And then I went up, I was like in the airport, and like, my name's Johnny Ward, only white dude there. My name's Johnny Ward, and flying to eastern Libya, to a city I've never heard of. And they're like, yep, no problem. And then I landed, and didn't have a visa or anything, no one checked. And then some guy comes and meets me literally on the tarmac, and he's like, Mr. Ward, come with me. And then they come and have this big long conversation in immigration, stamp, and then I go and stay with him and his family in the city. And he was one of the 6 guys who were part of the uprising when Gaddafi was there. I'm like, wow, this is mental.
At what point did you? I suppose there wasn't a point, but I suppose there was. Through the whole thing, was you thinking they're going to either mug me, kill me, or rob me, or something? That was the first time I was really scared. I wrote a will, and I flew to Tunisia via London to see my sister, because I thought, like, I knew ISIS were moving into East Libya, and they're there now. And I was thinking, like, this could just be a guy from ISIS messaging me, pretending that they're doing this, and then as soon as I get off the plane, they throw an orange jumpsuit on me,
and I'm on BBC News for all the wrong reason. That was really scared. I mean, it's easy for me to be all cocky and tell that story now. I was actually really terrified. And when I got to Tunisia, I flew into Tunis, the capital, and taking a night train to the south of Tunisia. And then, like, I don't know about you guys, but when you're feeling fearful and stuff, it's the nighttime that can hit you. And I was like on my own. I don't speak Arabic, and I was going to a city that I've never heard of in Tunisia, to fly to a city I've never heard of in Libya, and I didn't have a visa or any paperwork. And I was just thinking, like, okay, I want to finish my countries. It's my goal. It's my dream. But like, is this a good idea, or is this the one that you're so fucking stupid? And then it plays out in your head. I was thinking, like, this is going to be on the news for sure. BBC Northern Ireland, because no one from Ireland ever visited every country. And because of my blog and stuff, maybe even national news if I get kidnapped or killed. And I was thinking, like, people aren't going to give my mum or my sister sympathy for this. They're going to be like, what's this idiot doing? You know what I mean? Yeah. When they tell the story. And I was really close to thinking, this is just stupid. Maybe I'll just wait. And I was like, okay, fuck it, let's just wait.
I was going to say, how close did you get to canning it? Like, how close was you to not going? Or was you that determined that, shit, I've got to do this?
Genuinely, I can say that I was close to not going because I was scared, but I know my personality. Once I have the opportunity, I'm never not going to go. So, I mean, realistically, I was always going to do it.
But I was going to ask, what was the driving force behind you getting past all of those fears? But I guess, oh, fuck it, was what the driving
just
force
stubbornness?
was.
Just pure stubbornness? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I've been to embassies in, like, Angola, Mozambique, fucking everywhere, Cameroon, Nigeria. I've been to loads of Libyan embassies trying to get the visa for Libya, and no one would give me it because of the war. And then this guy's like, listen, I can get you in without a visa. So it was my only chance actually to get in.
So at that point, you was like, well, it's make or break.
Yeah, all or
nothing
to do it at this point.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, not only did you get in, but you've got a fucking awesome story at the back of it as well. And
that guy,
and now a diplomatic friend as well. So going forward, which is always good.
How long did you spend there with the guy, or did you just disappear off on your own?
5 days. I stayed with his family, and when I checked in, they'd made me like this little ceramic plate, being like, "Johnny Ward, welcome to Libya." Amazing.
What?
That's awesome.
So they proper took you under their wing and was like fully involved in it. So that guy was a proper fan then, the son that got in touch and everything else. He was like, we need to help you out.
Because his dad was part of the uprising against Gaddafi, like they're very proud of their country and about how things have transpired, and they like just wanted to show the good side and then like how kind and warm Libyans can be, and that's exactly what they were to me.
Knowing that you was going to write about it and everything else, it all looks good for them, doesn't it? I guess that's.
How has it? Like, how has traveling, to the extent you have, changed your perception of the way, especially in Europe and in the United Kingdom and stuff like that, how we perceive other countries? Because there is that whole thing. I think the more you travel, the smaller the world gets, and you kind of realize that no matter where you go, everyone's dealing with the same bullshit. Everyone's insecure. Everyone's scared of things. Everyone has the same fears. Obviously, some people in some countries have war and poverty and everything on top of that as well. How has it changed your perception of the way generally we Westerners especially perceive everything?
It certainly changed my perception of poverty, because I grew up what I had all my life considered poor, single parent on welfare. And then now I feel disingenuous doing interviews with guys like you or the media or whatever, talking about my poor upbringing, because obviously traveling, 90% of the world, even growing up if you're the poorest guy in Northern Ireland, you're still probably in the 2% richest people in the world. You know what I mean? So it's given me a huge understanding how fortunate I was to be born in the developed world, and also it has taught me, this is the bad side, it pisses me off when I see people moaning, who are born in the first world, moaning about lack of opportunities and wasting their opportunities. Free education to 18, government grants or government loans for third level education, free healthcare. If you're unhappy or unsuccessful, whatever you deem success to be, whether it's financial or freedom or whatever, right? If you are unsuccessful in whatever way you deem that, or unhappy in your life, if you're born and bred in a first world country, generally speaking, you've got no one else to blame but yourself. If you speak English, you've got internet access, and you're from a first world country, the world is truly your oyster, and you've got no one else to blame but yourself. And once you accept that, then the doors can open. But walking around with a chip on your shoulder, feeling hard done by, it's nonsense.
There's our soundbite.
That's
literally going to be everything that I ever post to anybody ever again that bitches about anything in the world. I'm just going to post that video and go, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I think that's one thing. I mean, again, myself, like, you have that perception of poverty, then you see how some people live in underdeveloped countries, and it makes you realize that you're a fucking idiot, and everything you thought was hard is. I mean,
exactly.
Obviously, I mean, difficult. You know, hardships are.
Everything's relative.
It is relative.
Yeah.
But when you do see how, and especially like, I think it was Cambodia that changed me. I went to Cambodia, and obviously with their history and everything that happened there, and Cambodians, for me, of all the countries I've been to, are the nicest people I've ever met. And when you go to like the killing fields and stuff like that, and S21, and you see the history and how bad it's been for them. And I remember I was on one of those buses where they stop off and they go to a cafe, and I didn't really know what was going on. So I just sat outside having a cigarette, and there's 2 kids playing in the dirt with a rolled up ball of socks. And they were the happiest kids I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And that really kind of like, and it's a dirt road town in the middle of fucking nowhere. And kind of does make you realize that's their life, and when they're older, they'll take over this little restaurant that their parents own. And then you go back and you complain about the M42 or the M6, and you know what I mean? Oh, my internet connection is not great. And it's just, it does kind of like bring you back down to go shut the fuck up and carry the fuck on.
Well, we do quite a lot of work in Cambodia now. Since I finished every country, I started a non-profit called Medita Adventures, and we run a lot of trips where we leverage my social media and my blog audience to raise money for projects. And we go to Battambang, a place in Cambodia, a lot. So we'd heard about this guy who was a monk. And then the way the Cambodian education system works is, obviously it's a very poor country, but education's free at high school, but it's obviously low quality. But the way it generally works is, if you don't take private tuition from the high school teachers, they won't graduate you from high school, which means you have to essentially bribe this teacher to allow you to graduate from high school, which then hopefully would allow you to go to university and ultimately break the cycle of poverty. But when the kids literally got nothing, they can't afford the $10 bribe or whatever it would be to graduate from high school. So they're just stuck in the cycle of poverty. Anyway, so this guy started an evening school in Battambang, Cambodia city near the Thai border. And it's just been growing and growing and growing. And then when I finished every country, me and a buddy started this non-profit, and we went there and built them a new kindergarten and built the kids a playground. And then since last year, we went back again with a private donor and built 6 houses for a community there, for a homeless community that lives in his city too. And this guy, before he had us helping him, had just dedicated his entire life teaching these kids every evening so that he could graduate them from high school level education so they could get onto university. And then now, talking about realizing what true poverty is, we're trying to use my social media and online presence for something positive, rather than just showing off like your girlfriend's hot ass in a bikini like most people use Instagram for.
I mean, that's a good use of it, rather than just, hey, look how great I am. It's
which
yeah. But I mean, that's one good thing about, but that shows the person you are, you know what I mean, to use your platform to try and do good and go, I've done this, and rather than just lording it about and trying to be damn Blitzarian about it and I'm the king of Instagram, it's, okay, what the fuck can I do to change people's lives for the better now?
Yeah, it's fun as well. So actually, Yemen, we run a lot of trips in Yemen. We've donated almost $250,000 since we started 4 years ago. It's cool. But COVID obviously paused everything, which is a bit sad. But actually, we're running a project starting tomorrow in Tanzania. I can't go because I'm stuck here. That my co-founder, Josh from Canada, he's in the air at the moment. We keep going back to the same school in Arusha in Tanzania. We first went there 3 years ago. It's like a really rundown school where we built in 3 classrooms, and then 2 years ago, 3 more classrooms. Last year, 3 more classrooms and a staff room and running water. And we're going back again starting next Monday for 3 more classrooms, and we only need to do 1 more, and the entire school will be gleaming brand new, which is great.
That is cool.
What's crazy as well is, in the grand scheme of things, that's not that expensive to do, is it? Like, it's in that local area. It's not like you're building it like in UK prices or island prices or even the US. Like, everything's so cheap to do, and it doesn't take a lot to make that much of a difference. Yet so many people just choose not to bother. It's mental.
We do it. It costs us. Well, this is the 4th time or 5th time we're going back now tomorrow when my mate lands, and we normally do between 8 and 15 grand US, so about 10 sterling, let's say, each time. So yeah, 40 grand it's cost all in. And so then let's say we do one more next year, be 50 grand sterling, and it'll be a whole new school.
Which is
That's
nothing.
crazy, yeah.
Which is the price of a new car.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That people are going to work.
When you think we spent 12 million on our non-functioning track and trace
Well,
app in this country.
Yeah.
let's not go down there.
I want to speak a bit about your ultramarathons because you mentioned earlier you've just done one last weekend. I did see on Instagram your friend's toe, and you put a few warnings up saying don't look unless you really want to look.
I didn't look.
Last warning.
I didn't look.
Wish I hadn't
didn't
looked. How was that for yourself, the experience of it? Because what's the temperature over there now?
Oh God, it's winter, so we thought it was going to be cold, but I don't do much research before I do this kind of stuff. And it was like 35 degrees.
That's the one thing that's coming across the most is that's it. Because honestly, I think if you did, you probably wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do half the things. I'm the same. That I don't research. I'm always like, I'll go there and work it out, because the more I read up, the more I'm not going to do it.
That's what I mean. If you go, well, actually, the temperature's a bit hot, and it's a bit far. And if you just go, fuck it, we'll figure it out when we're there. You're already there, so.
Have you heard about the concept of paralysis by analysis?
Yeah.
You know,
if you want to talk about it a bit,
you're paralyzed. You analyze it so much, you become paralyzed.
Right.
And you're like, well, I'm the opposite of that. I don't think about it too much, and then I'm in it. So then you just have to do it, and I think that's far more effective. Yeah, my mate's feet were actually pretty bad, and I just love him for it. I love the guy anyway. He's a lovely guy. He's a teacher here in Bangkok, and he'd never done anything like this in his life. He's 42. I went out for him in St. Patrick's Day, just before the lockdown here in Thailand, and we were getting drunk in an Irish bar, and there were stopped alcohol sales in Thailand for a month to minimise the spread. And I was like, oh, bro, let's get fit again. And he was this chubby guy, and anyway, he did it, and we were going to run a marathon. And then, like, as a byproduct of being a friend of mine, the marathon became an ultramarathon.
Yeah.
And then after we did 102K, which is about 2.5 marathons on the first day, stopped for 3 or 4 hours, and then 2.5 marathons, or whatever it was the next day. And his feet, like, he was almost in tears. And then the last half marathon we did, so like from 180K to 195K, whatever it was, he just started running again. And I was just so proud of him. And he was like, and then when he took his shoes off, you saw those photographs, Sonny. And I thought, like, he was running on that. I'm like, whoa. I just spoke to him actually for 3 hours ago. He's still got his feet all bandaged up and everything.
I mean, I'm not surprised. It's only been a few days, and he looked like he had another foot growing on there, to be honest with you. So, yeah. That was a bit
but we fund 6,000 food packages to donate to families in Klong Toy slum down at the riverfront here. So we're going to go down and do that in 2 weeks' time, hand it all out. It's great.
And you said you've done the ultramarathons in the Sahara as well. I mean, how was...
Yeah, I think I should actually interject. I'm not a runner, actually. I've only done 3. I've done a
You only run if it's an ultramarathon, basically.
Yeah, but you say you've only done 3, but that's like 18 marathons.
Yeah.
Like, you've done, I've only run 3 times, but they're all like 6 fucking days.
I'd never done one, and then in March 2018, I did the North Pole Marathon, and then the following year in March, I did the Sahara, 6 marathons in 6 days, and then last weekend, that 4.5 marathon, ultramarathon. And that's the only time I've done it. I'm not a runner at all.
Me asking you this was trying to build up to the North Pole Marathon, because you've run in a desert and you've ran on the North Pole as well, which is the two contrasting, the hottest place and coldest place, essentially. How is that in terms of mentality?
That's the coolest way to live your life. If you're going to run, you might as well do something cool.
No, completely.
We were running the Medita Adventures non-profit that we run. I was actually in India for a month in the lead up to the North Pole Marathon. So I was training in India in the mornings, running like 10, 20K in the mornings, getting ready for the North Pole Marathon. It's like 40 degrees.
I was going to say, it's very similar terrain, very similar temperature. Yeah, it's ideal training.
And then it was brutal, bro. And then we finished the project at the opening ceremony for the new school. And I flew from New Delhi to Svalbard, this island right up near the North Pole, belongs to Norway.
It's the most northerly habitated place in the world, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I got wild polar bears and stuff. Yeah. Amazing. And then I got it, and it was like -20. My God, this is horrific. It's like 50 degrees different or whatever it was.
I mean, at least you're running so you're warm. Or trying to stay warm, at least your core temperature's beating against it.
So I'd never run them. You have to take like a military, like Russian military plane from Svalbard into the North Pole, right? And I was full of loads of expert triathletes and Ironman, all these hardcore runners, and I'd never run before, and I'd just come from India, and had all my, I'd borrowed my mate's ski gear that I was wearing, this orange coat, and we got on this like military plane that drops us in the North Pole, like you're like 1 kilometer from the North Pole, and we get out, it's fucking freezing, all the hairs inside my nostrils and everything freeze, and we get into this tent, and they're like, okay, the marathon starts in 4 hours, like, and everyone sits down, starts getting all their snacks and stuff out. And I didn't have anything, any of these energy gels. I do actually know about this stuff now since the Marathon des Sables, the Sahara one. But at the time, they're all getting all these like slow release carbs and all this stuff. And I was like, I didn't have anything. And they're like, get your stuff out. And I was like, I don't have anything.
Get me some biscuits. Get me some biscuits.
They all started giving me involved with it. The thing about these extreme sports and stuff is people are lovely. You know what I mean? It's not actually, of course, people still win the event, but they know you're in the shit together, so actually it's a really nice camaraderie. So loads of people gave me loads of stuff, and I was like, thanks. And then we got like a 30-minute warning for when it started, and everyone starts putting on their proper cold weather running gear, and they're like, Johnny, it's for 30 minutes, get your gear on. I was like, this is my gear. This is all thing. So then they're all helping me out, taping me all up and everything, and anyway, we got through that.
I feel like you're my power animal because I lived in Iceland for a year, and there's a hike there called the Fimmvörður House hike. It's 26 kilometers, and I did that in Converse shorts and a Led Zeppelin vest.
Yeah.
And there's people walking past me with all their gear, all the North Face stuff on, and I look like I'm lost. Like I literally just took a wrong turning somewhere, and did the same thing in Patagonia. I did Torres del Paine on the Chilean side, and did it in unlaced up Martins, again, shorts and a hoodie. And there's people with their hiking sticks. There's 4 feet of snow. I'm slipping down this fucking mountain. And when I was the second person to the top that day. When I got down to the bottom, there was a guy who came over to me. He was like, I saw you on the mountain. I just want to ask, are you a professional or an idiot? And I was like, I'm definitely an idiot. I did zero prep. And still, like,
you're not the, you know what, mate? You're not the only person probably telling that story. There'll be a host of Chileans being like, 5 years ago I saw this fucking moron.
He had shorts on.
Had shorts on.
Yeah, he had shorts on.
Yeah. But I dress the same if I'm going to a club or if I'm climbing a mountain. I mean,
that is true.
Literally, if you go on my Instagram, if you go back enough.
Always prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the point, really. I mean, again, when you said you had no food, when I did that hike, that 26K one, I had a pack of cookies with me. And that was only because my girlfriend at the time was adamant I had to take something to eat. And I was like, for fuck's sake, fine. So I took a pack of cookies, had a bottle of water, and that was it. But I lived.
Yeah.
Didn't die.
Didn't die.
You're still standing.
Exactly, yeah.
Didn't die.
Yeah.
Winning at life.
So are there any other ultramarathons you've got planned? I mean, you've done ice, you've done sand. What else?
I did that, obviously, that 2,000k cycle, but that was so brutal, mate, because I'd never cycled more than like 20 minutes.
You did say during that as well, you borrowed it, or you rented a bike. Did you research the bike you needed first, or did you just go, that one's pretty, let's take that one?
No, because Bangkok didn't really have any cycle places that rented bikes, so I had to find somewhere else in Thailand. There was some Swiss guy in Phuket who had a bike company, and he doesn't really rent them per se, but I said, mate, I'm doing this thing. Can you send me your bike? So he posted it to me.
Right, okay.
I mean, yeah.
Where there's a will, there's a way, right? Yeah.
So. I had to assemble it, and I didn't know how to assemble a bike, so I had to get one of my neighbours in my condo here in Bangkok to assemble it.
Did you do it on your own? Was it on your own?
I did it. I didn't have any friends who were fit enough to do the whole thing, but I had a friend do the first half with me. And then I swapped that friend for a different friend who did the second half with me.
Oh, okay, then.
Do you think you would have been able to do it on your own? Or did having someone there help you do it?
I feel like, that Alexander Supertramp quote, true happiness is only known when shared.
Yeah.
I really believe like being able to do stuff with close friends is really beautiful. So I pretty much, basically I come up with these ideas like the ultra or the cycle. I said, I'm going to do this 100%. And my friends know me now that if I say I'm going to do it. And then they can join or not. And they know I'll do all the planning and the logistics and everything. So or they'll leave the planning to me, and then the planning won't be done, is what I should say. But they'll know.
Or any research.
Or there's some
whatsoever.
friends who, as soon as Johnny's like, I've got an ultramarathon in mind, they just turn their phones off, and it's like, haven't heard nothing for a couple of weeks. I'll wait till he's done and then get back in touch.
I think I might do an Ironman next year. I'll think about it, but I can't swim, so.
I mean, you couldn't cycle or run before, so
Wait. Whoa, stop.
It's a good way to learn.
You can't swim? No.
No.
And we spoke to Pritchard on our second guest podcast.
Yeah.
And you're going to row across the Atlantic Ocean with him in a boat on the sea, and you can't swim.
Yeah, but I told the skipper on Skype that I can't swim. He seems like a cool guy. I've never met him before, but he seems like a really nice guy. Billy, his name is. I said before, because it was a big application process to get on the boat. And then I said, I'd give him a spiel about why I want to do it. And I said, but listen, I've got to be honest with you. I can't really swim. And he's like, oh, don't worry. We'll be planning to spend most of our time inside the boat. I was like, all right then.
You're like, I can't swim, but I can float.
I mean,
so technically,
I can't swim at all. I haven't been swimming since I was 19 years since I last went swimming. But I also wouldn't put myself in the middle of the ocean because of that. So, I mean, that's the difference between me and you, I guess. It's like, if I'm going to learn, I'll learn in the ocean.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to try to learn. I'm going to try to learn in the next few weeks.
Right, okay. Because also, if you're doing the equator thing as well, you were saying earlier, there's a lot of ocean in between there as well. So swimming might come in useful.
But then I also think, this rowing the Atlantic thing. I mean, if something happens to the boat, God forbid, in the middle of the Atlantic, whether you can swim
there's that.
5 kilometers, 5 meters, it's not going to save your life, is it?
That's true. Yeah, if
you can have a life jacket on, I would assume.
Yeah, but if you capsize in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, I'd still prefer to be able to swim, to be honest.
I mean, give them the option.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to turn up and race Lewis Hamilton's car and not be able to drive.
Yeah.
Some clue to begin with usually is, a bit more useful. Surely you just put yourself under more pressure if you couldn't swim and just went, fuck it, let's turn up and see what happens.
I mean, he seems you seem to persevere under pressure, so maybe that's the best way to go into it.
To be honest, I am actually scared about the road. I think it's probably the most scared I've been about anything in my life.
Tell us, I mean, I don't know that much about it. I've just seen what Pritch has shared and stuff like that. So tell us what the exact whole crazy idea is.
So I follow this other guy, this Irish guy on Instagram, Damien Brown, his name is, and he rowed across the Atlantic a few years ago. And I was like, that is actual legendary stuff. I want to do that. I really believe in the law of attraction, right? But not some airy-fairy version. I believe in wanting something so badly that deep down, subconsciously, every decision you make is driving you in the direction that you want, right? And I really believe that deeply. So that first put it in my head. I was like, I'm going to do that for sure. That's fucking cool, rowing across the Atlantic. And then when I did the Sahara ultramarathon, there was a guy in my tent. He sleep out on the sand every night, right? And he rowed across the Atlantic. And I was like, oh, mate, you're the second person that I've met that's doing this. I really want to do it. He's like, I'll join this Facebook group, Ocean Rowing Society, it's called. And I was like, right, okay. And then it was only about a month ago, someone said, listen, there's a spot going, we're rowing across the Atlantic in January. And I applied for it just to spur of the moment. And then they picked me. And now, I just booked my flights this afternoon back to the UK. We're going to meet in Lanzarote and just get going.
When is it you'll be doing it?
Middle of January it starts, and it takes about 7 weeks or so.
Jesus. So it's...
Yeah.
It's a big ocean.
How many... Is it one boat? You all in one boat?
The boat, yeah. There's 4 of us. The boat's tiny. It's maybe the size of 2 single beds stuck to each other, or 2 queen beds stuck to each other. And you do 2 hours rowing, 2 hours resting, 2 hours rowing, 2 hours resting for the entire 7 weeks.
And that includes your sleep as well. If you sleep, it's within that 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's insane.
All night, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. And when you're on your off, there's a little space that's kind of the size of a big kitchen table, and 2 of you just both lie down there for 2 hours.
And
pretty brutal.
Is it just you guys in the boat? Have you got other boats coming along to record it or help you?
Completely unsupported, and just the 4 of us.
Right.
What?
Okay.
What?
I mean,
That's why
Yeah,
when you
no.
said you couldn't swim, I thought, oh, it'll be okay because if you fall in, there'll be other people
There'll be
there
another
and they'll
boat
be able
next
to
to
help
you.
you out.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like there might be a helicopter on standby, but no, it's just you four.
No.
For 7 weeks. So you're not going to get out of that boat for 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Holy shit. 7 weeks is a long fucking
It
time.
really is.
I know.
And if you
I'm
think,
really scared. I don't want to die, of course, but that's actually not what scares me the most. I'm more scared of like no personal space.
yeah,
Just the discomfort, sleep deprivation, the physical side of like the exercise stuff. I'm kind of looking forward to the thought of on the road 12 hours a day. I like that kind of challenge, but the thought like not having any second to myself, not being able to read a book, not being able to eat something that I want to eat for weeks and weeks, months. Actually, it's really scary for me.
and where do you come out on the other side? So where do you land?
Antigua, Caribbean.
Right. Okay.
It's not the end of the world.
I don't like sand. So I'm going to end
Oh,
up
yeah.
beach.
Yeah, but there's more to it than the beach. Like, there'll be a bar, there'll be a restaurant, there'll be a probably nice 5-star hotel.
Yeah, bar.
There'll be, I guess, more importantly, there'll be land, which after
Yeah.
7 weeks at sea.
There's going to be nothing left of you
Yeah.
after 7 weeks.
I mean,
Like,
that's,
literally
look,
nothing.
how much food and stuff can you really take if there's on one boat as well?
I mean, the whole bottom storage bit's just all food because there's 4 of us and we all need 7,000 calories a day because you're rowing 12 hours every day each. So you need loads of calories. But it's still, I asked the skipper yesterday, I had a call with him, and he said he loses like 14 kilos each time. I don't know if you guys are students of kilos, but God's a lot.
Yeah.
Holy
That's,
shit. That's half my dog.
That's a big dog. So when have you, with the 3 peaks you've got left and the South Pole, when are you looking to accomplish those by?
I was supposed to do the highest mountain in North America, which is in Alaska, a mountain called Denali. I was supposed to do that in June this year, but it was cancelled for COVID.
Right.
And then I was supposed to do Everest in April coming. So that's all been pushed a year later. So I'll do the row. I'll row across the Atlantic January, February, March, and then I'll take a month or 2 off, come back to Thailand, and then I'll fly to Alaska, COVID permitting, and do the North American one in June next year. And then it comes down to funding because I'm getting married and building a house at the moment in Thailand. But Everest and the highest mountain in Antarctica are both fucking expensive. They're like 50 grand each.
Is that for the permits or?
Permits and just, yeah, the permit for Everest is like 10 or 15 grand, but then it takes 2 months to climb Everest, so you got loads of other costs too.
Are you doing?
And then the Antarctica one, it costs a fortune to get to Antarctica.
Yeah. Are you doing the Nepalese side or the Tibetan side?
I had planned to do the Nepalese side, but the operator that I'm working with wants me to do the Tibet side. I don't really know much about it, so I'll just do whatever he tells me to do.
To the top, like all the way to the top
Yeah.
of Everest.
I mean, you're
like,
not climbing Everest if you don't get to the peak.
Yeah, but isn't that like really? Don't you like pass dead bodies and shit on the way
Yeah.
up and stuff? Like people that have died on the way up and that.
But I think that's just because it's too expensive to get them down, so they leave them there.
I mean, that doesn't take
Yeah.
away the fact that it's still a fucking
Well,
dead body.
I mean, yeah.
that you're. Like,
I do want to do Everest, but I think financially it's out of my.
never say never.
Well, never say never. Temporarily, financially out of my.
I'd be worried
mate,
about your waistline
money-
going up Everest.
Listen, speaking from experience, money can come quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause I saw it in 2016. I went to Nepal. I wanted to get Tibet's top of my list of places to go, but obviously with everything that's happened there with China, it is very difficult to go there. And I didn't plan for it because I'm like you, just I'll go there and see how it goes. So I went to Kathmandu and said to the woman there, like, how hard is it to get to Tibet? And she just laughed at me, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm not going to do that then.
I've got a great contact that can get you permits for Tibet as well. Actually, to be honest.
Well, we'll definitely stay in touch then because
Don't tell him
it
that.
is,
Don't tell him that. He'll disappear, and then I'll have to do the podcast on my own.
We can do it remotely. We'll be fine.
You know.
So just speaking a bit about the countries, I did ask earlier, but I think we got sidetracked by something else. With the countries that you've been most surprised by in terms of, I'll go there, I'm not expecting much, or countries where you expected the worst and have been pleasantly surprised by, are there any kind of like recommendations you would have or just experiences you've had which surprised you?
I think the coolest country, it's actually not a country, so it's a bad example, but I think something that's about to blow up massively. You guys are the same age as me, but for example, this is not the example, but remember 10 years ago, no one knew about Iceland, and now every man and his dog goes to Iceland, right? The next place that's going to do that is definitely the Faroe Islands.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of Faroe. I mean, I follow a Faroe Islands page on Instagram, actually.
It's just starting to do it now. I mean, I went 2 years ago with a buddy, and it is unbelievable.
And it's really close as well, like to the UK. It's like literally just, it looks as like an island of Scotland almost. Like it's that close as well. So
that'll definitely blow up really, really soon, like Iceland. It's amazing. And then also, I think a country that is starting to get famous, but is also amazing, is Ethiopia in East Africa. It's starting to get a bit of a buzz as well, and it deserves it. You know, countries like Namibia, for example, are already quite established in the tourism world, but Ethiopia for sure is going to be big. It's pretty amazing. Ivory Coast is a cool country that most people wouldn't think about. That's nice. And Uzbekistan, cool too.
And any countries you went to where you were like, okay, I've been here, I can tick it off, but I'm never coming here again?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Poland for me.
I had a wild experience in Guinea, in West Africa. It's a long story, actually, that I can't get into it, but it took me like 18 hours in the back of a motorbike. We entered it illegally as well, across the border, and then I got stuck in this Chinese hotel in the port. This was nowhere to stay. It's not a tourism place at all. And there was a fucking jailbreak, and all prisoners were running.
Oh my God.
And it was in the middle of the night, and I woke up, like, you can just hear, like, gunfire. And I'm like, what the hell? And I go downstairs to the Chinese lady in reception. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, they've blown up the wall of the jail, and all prisoners have got out. Great. This is great.
Seems like the ideal place I need to be.
Fuck me.
Yeah.
So don't go to Guinea during a jailbreak. Top tip.
But go to Faroe Islands.
But go to the Faroe Islands. That's cool. At least
or Ivory Coast.
We've got some recommendations.
We have
there.
got some recommendations.
On TripAdvisor.
That's
Happy days.
Insane. Do you get a lot of what questions? I mean, you must get the whole "What's the best country you've been to? What's the worst country you've been to?" Which I am trying to avoid.
Yeah.
I was told specifically not to ask that question.
Yeah. I did tell him, don't ask that question.
Thank you. I get asked that every day, yeah. And I actually don't have an answer for it. I should just think of some standard answer that I can give to
Ireland should be the answer.
Well, he said you'd say Ireland. I said if he does get asked, he'll probably say Thailand because he's lived there for 9 years. Was it 9 years you've lived there now?
To live, Thailand is great, but as a tourist destination, for me, I like adventurous travel.
You do not have to answer it, just
Thailand
to clarify.
For holiday travel, not adventure travel.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's it. I get asked. I'm always like, it depends. Is it the best city I've been to, the best nature I've been to, the best food, the best music? Like, it just depends on where you go. So there's no definitive answer.
I mean, I think.
Although having said that, if I could recommend one place to anyone in the world, I don't know if you were following me at the start of the year, but I was in a Yemeni island off the coast of Somalia called Socotra. That's probably the most beautiful place in the world, I think.
Right. Okay.
There you go. That's a better question. Not what's your favourite. What's the one place you would most recommend?
Okay, yeah.
That's a good question.
There's other ways of wording it.
Let's do it again because we can clip that. So, Johnny, what's the number one place you would recommend out of all the countries you've been to visit?
Yeah, well, Socotra Island, but it's difficult to get to.
Oh.
I'm not going to clip it, by the way. I'm just going to put the whole thing up. It's fine.
What was... I've got a couple of questions. I spoke to a chap who I work with and told him, and he's quite into his travelling and all that sort of stuff, and he said, I bet he's never been to Antarctica because you're not allowed to go. I was like, I'm pretty sure you are. I was like, I'm pretty sure. He's like, no, there's this treaty that they've all signed that nobody's allowed to fly over it, all the flights divert over the top of it and all this. I was like, I don't think that's strictly true. But he's adamant that you can't visit Antarctica.
No, I've been to Antarctica.
And is it just as you would recommend, just white?
I mean, I'm going to get called very uncultured here. I thought it was a little bit boring, to be honest.
I mean, it doesn't seem like a number one tourist spot.
I'm guessing that is one of those, I've seen it, what's next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know, but because it's so expensive to get to, if you meet people who haven't traveled obviously as extensively as I have, it's a very common thing for them to be like, oh, it's the most beautiful place I've ever been. But that's more just about like a reason to brag that they've been there, because it is cool to go there.
Did you go from?
Certainly not.
Did you go from Ushuaia?
Argentina.
Yeah. What was your other question?
I suppose that is true, and it like you go, oh well, what's the, and then they can just go, oh well, I went to Antarctica. Yeah, it was.
Well, it's not only that; it's saying you've been to every continent. I think there's a lot of reason. Yeah. The big reason people go is so you can say you've been to all 7.
Yeah.
That's why most people. I mean, I've only met 2 people. You being the third now, that have been, because they tell you as well. If you meet someone who's been to Antarctica, they definitely let you know they've been to Antarctica.
Who's the other person?
Oh, those people I met traveling.
Oh, okay.
For any hardcore traveler, so if you want to go to Antarctica, you have to go apart from Australia. You can go from Australia, but it's really pricey. People don't generally do that. So you go from the southern tip of Argentina, Ushuaia, as you said. And if you book it online, it's normally 7-8 grand US, so about 5-6 sterling. For a boat, it takes about 10-12 days. It takes 3 days in the boat to get there, and then you spend a few days there and 3 or 4 days back. But if you just go to Ushuaia with no ticket booked and go to every agent there, you're like 99.9999% guaranteed you'll get on a boat going in the next 2 or 3 days from a cancellation, and that only costs about 3 grand.
Oh, okay then.
Travel hack.
Top tip, life hack.
Travel hack.
Yeah. If you ever want to go.
Yeah.
So what's there? Like, what is it? Obviously, there's a town and stuff, but I would imagine there's not a lot.
Shitloads of penguins and a British post office.
And a British what?
Post office.
And that's it.
That's it. David Beckham played football there.
There's different bases at each.
Yes.
Like I think we visited 2 bases. One, and then you get to meet the people who've lived there for a year or whatever they're stationed there for. It is cool. Like, it's not a shit place. It is cool. But considering how expensive it is, and let's say like a normal trip is 12 days, and 8 of those days you're just in the ocean. Yeah. Not seeing it. And you have to go through this place called the Drake's Passage, which is the biggest waves in the world. So everyone's just throwing up everywhere. It's pretty hard. So is it not like a town? So it's all just basically like scientific bases and that sort of thing. There's no like. It is cool. It's just not. It's not the coolest place in the world.
For the amount it costs, it's not the coolest place. I'm guessing. Like, if it was cheap to get there, then it's like fucking not a problem. It's.
Yeah, but then everyone would go.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Then everyone would go.
Like, if you're on a tight budget, like I used to be, and you got 8 grand to drop on a trip, I think it would be far cooler. Like when I did Cape Town to Cairo by public transport when I was broke, that took me almost a year, and I only spent 10 grand US, so like 7 sterling or whatever. That's a far cooler thing to do than 12 days to Antarctica and back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The thing is, though, everybody's heard of Antarctica, haven't they? Yeah. Everybody. And I think that's the draw, isn't it? It's like, it doesn't matter who you could mention 50 of them countries in Africa and nobody's ever heard of them. Yeah, you say...
There's not 50 countries in Africa.
Well, you know what I mean. But 50% then. But you could say, well, I've been to Antarctica. Oh, you've been to Antarctica? Because it's just such an unknown that nobody even knows what to even expect. Like, I didn't know what was there. I knew there was bases and stuff.
Actually, on the last podcast, we were talking about North Korea very quickly, and we said we can ask you about North Korea.
Yes, we did.
What was your experience there? Like, I know it's probably one of those questions you get asked a lot. We were only asking because...
not really. There's two things I think about North Korea. Number one is that it's actually first of all, it is fucked up, right? The place. Yeah. So what I'm about to say doesn't mean it's not fucked up. It's still weird. It's not anywhere near as weird as you think it's going to be.
As it's perceived to be, yeah.
Like, people are still, like, there's still groups of kids playing football. There's still bars that people are sitting drinking and having beers. There's like functioning economy that people are going buying bread and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, people are milling around. They've got a subway system in the city that people are going to and from work and everything.
Right, okay.
So it's far more functioning than you expect. But there's no colour. And like, the pub that you're in is just North Korean beer, or the food that you buy, it's all self-produced bread and grains and stuff from the country. There's no import, export. So there's no colour. Everyone wears black. There's no ads, no music. Like, it's a depressing place. Right, and that's before you even talk about the labour camps and stuff, and just talking about Pyongyang itself. And then what's mostly fucked up about it is you've got like armed guards and stuff with you to make sure you don't speak to people and all that. Obviously, that's messed up. And I had a camera. I brought 2 phones with me. I took the train from Beijing, this 24-hour train into North Korea, and I had heard that they take your phone from you. So I bought a second phone. I handed that phone over and kept my phone so I could take photographs. And we were in the subway system, took the escalator down, and there was a homeless guy in the subway, and foreigners shouldn't see the homeless people. It's one of the famous things that you'll never see poverty-stricken people there. They keep it away from foreigners, even though the whole country's starving.
Yeah.
And I took a photograph of the homeless guy, and just as we were about to get on, the train was just about to open, and I took a quick snap, jumped on the train, and then the train closed. And as the train closed to take off, these guards came running at me, being like, "Whoa!" And the train started to move, and I'm like, fucking hell, that was close. And they stopped the whole subway system and stopped the train halfway down the tunnel for the guards then to get on and come and confiscate the photograph and get it deleted off my phone.
What?
Stop the whole subway system.
So
That's insane.
Did you enter as a journalist, or was it? Can you just literally
really,
you could just fly in as a normal country?
Like countries like Somalia and Saudi Arabia, actually not Saudi now because they're trying to whitewash their human rights record with all these sports events, but Saudi Arabia used to be hard. Somalia, Afghanistan, Yemen, these are difficult countries. Libya are really difficult countries to visit. North Korea is a really, really easy country to visit. You just pay to get on a tour. There's 2 or 3 companies that run it. You don't even have to go to an embassy, and then you just show up in Beijing and go. It's really simple.
Oh, right, okay.
So, but then obviously there's certain things, but you can't just enter on your own. You couldn't just wander around.
No, it's impossible. I've got a really funny story from North Korea. It's a long story. I'll tell you guys if I ever meet you for a beer, but I know a guy who runs a tour company there. Long story short, he speaks Korean and speaks Chinese. He's a mental case. And he was going off on a fam trip, which is trips, if you run a tour, you go and see the tour that you're going to potentially sell to your clients in the future, right? So you just go there on your own. And he knows all the Koreans. He's a communist himself. He's an English guy. And he got really drunk on the train with all these Koreans, all these North Koreans from Beijing. Because you basically get drunk. Everyone gets drunk on the train. It's 24 hours. You're stuck on it. You just get wrecked on the train before you arrive in Pyongyang. And he ended up singing Titanic with these drunk Koreans. And he's a really fat, like 5'2" guy, like weird looking good guy. And he ends up on top of the train pretending to be Rose, and he fell off the train.
Fuck. That's crazy.
And now he's got permanent, like, Willy Wonka limp years later.
Because he fell off a train.
Because you fell off a train, trying to be king of the world. Apparently. How many languages do you speak?
I speak decent Thai. I study 3 hours every day, actually, and I studied Spanish when I was there in Colombia for a couple of months, and then I studied French all the way up to university, but I'm awful at it.
Was that because I'm guessing Spanish? Because obviously there's a lot of Spanish-speaking countries. Was French because of Africa and stuff like that?
I just studied French because that's what we study in Ireland, like in my shitty school. But I'm really bad. I would say my French is like a 2 out of 10. My Spanish is like a 2 out of 10, but my Thai is pretty good.
Right. Okay.
I want to speak Spanish. That's my goal, I think, and I keep telling myself I'm going to do it. And
like
I
you
never
learn to play golf.
And I want to. Well, yeah, but I think golf was just because I was bored at the time.
He'd have learnt by now.
Oh no, he'd be doing a fucking. He'd be in the PGA Tour by now, Johnny Wood. He'd be like,
yeah.
I mean, I could play golf, or let's go and fucking play it on a jumbo jet that's circling the fucking
Don't give him
ocean.
ideas. Because we'll see on Instagram in 6 months. He'll be on a jumbo jet with a golf club.
I do think that the stories like that are 100% what makes the travelling worth it. Like if you like, Sonny has all these stories, but they never really have an ending because nothing ever really happens.
It's like you were saying earlier. It's like it's when shit's about to kick off, but you walk away from it. That's all of my travel stories. It's like something almost happened, but it didn't.
He's like, he went, where was you when there was the dead end? No, there was the shortcut sign. Where was that?
Oh, that was in Thailand. That was in Bangkok.
So he said, I was walking through the streets and everything
I was
else.
going to Koh San Road. So I was staying in Siloam, and I got tuk-tuk or whatever to stop around the corner. And I was walking with this girl to Koh San Road and saw a sign literally written on the, when you get like a crate of Coca-Cola, the cardboard at the bottom, someone had written shortcut in marker
with an arrow.
With an arrow.
No, shortcut this way.
So I was like, a shortcut. So I just went. And
so at no point did you think, this could be a bit dodgy? No,
it
off
was
you
a bit
went.
sketchy. I had a bottle of Chang, so I literally just poured it out and thought if anything happens, I'll just smack them with it. And it was fine. Nothing happened.
And that's the end of the story.
That's the end of the story.
You think this is going to be a really good story?
It was just a shortcut.
I got mugged. These guys jumped me. No, we just walked to the end of it, and that was fine. I got there quicker.
I was going from Koh Tao to Phuket, and I stayed in Suratani for the night because I got basically the bus dropped me off and said, "You stay here till 8 a.m." And I was like, it's 6 p.m. Like, what am I meant to do until then? He's like, find hotel. So I went on Hostel World, couldn't find any hostels. I found one that was a 3.4 rating. And I'm like, I'll try and see if I can find something else first. Couldn't, went there, didn't exist. I'm guessing that's why it had a poor rating. And then found a hotel. Yeah, I mean, I'd never heard of Suratani, so it is pretty much just a port town, right? It's just, if you're not from Thailand, it's just, you're there for transit. Ended up finding a hotel, which was like a halfway house for prostitutes. And I went and asked a woman, like, how much for a room, and she gave me a price menu, which had like half an hour, 45. I was like, no, I want to stay the night. And she was, oh, sorry, flipped it round. And there's prostitutes everywhere. And I'm asking all of them like for directions. They're all like, we don't speak English. And I'm like, you said that in English, but cool. And then ended up staying in this room, which had 4 padlocks kicked off it over time. So it just had a latch. And that was the lock on the room. And I had a shower and slept in all my clothes. And again, was like, I might die tonight, but nothing happened.
But literally nothing happened. So that's the end of that's the end of his stories.
All of my stories is like, this place was sketchy, but no. Well, I mean, you've got a few where there's jailbreaks, which is...
That's what I'm saying. All Johnny's stories are cool. Yours are a bit shit.
Things happen in Johnny's stories.
Yours are a bit shit.
Mine are just, yeah.
You just like, oh yeah, well, I went there and...
Got chased by a dog in Suratani as well.
That was it?
That was it. That was my story. So, but maybe you should travel with me and... You might be all right, but I don't think your stories will be as good.
I don't think you're putting enough effort in.
You can jump on the boat from Lanzarote. I would quite like no stories from that journey.
I think out of everything that you've told me that you've done, or the marathons and everything else, I think that rowing thing is the one that I would just be like, as cool as it would be. No. But
I think the thing is, it's probably one of those things because we're this side of it, you haven't done it yet. Whereas if you'd said the same thing about, I'm going to go and run an ultramarathon in the desert.
Yeah, but you know that's a certain timeline. It's not going to take fucking... If somebody said...
Don't put fear in him. He's already shitting himself.
7 weeks on your own around... Say if somebody said, there's Wembley Stadium.
Yeah.
You've got to run around the outside of it your own for 7 weeks.
How far?
Like, fuck no.
How far from the coast will you be? Because if you're going to be, I'm guessing you're just out, literally just, if you capsize or anything, there's not like...
Maybe we should stop this conversation.
That's why I started struggling halfway through it, like maybe I shouldn't finish the sentence.
I kind of feel like the boat can't capsize. What happens is when the weather gets really bad, you get those like big 10-meter waves, they just lock it up and the 4 of you are in that tiny little space and you just get spun around, I think.
Oh, that's all right.
That's all right. You'll be all right. Yeah, just a bit of a wet hair. But
it's 5,000. It's 5,000 kilometers, I think, or 3,000 miles or something.
So this is definitely your biggest challenge to date, by far.
Yeah, I mean, I think every country took me 10 years, though. But you could stop and start that. This is just...
That's what I mean. You didn't start and didn't stop for 10 years.
But I guess that's a bigger feat in terms of...
I don't know, man. Sitting next to somebody for 7 weeks.
How did we have to ask? Because we will be told to ask, not told to ask, but people will be. Why didn't you ask? With the making a million, and I am sorry because I know it's not the thing you want to focus on. It is the smaller accomplishment.
We want to know because we want to do what you've done. Want to know, so fuck everyone else. But let's make this shit happen.
Because obviously going into it when you were blogging initially, I guess it was a way of almost like sharing your story, but also posterity. You've got it there to look back on and stuff like that. But how far into that did you start thinking, okay, I can try and make money from this? Was it people approaching you or were you trying to perpetuate it out?
I started I was in Australia on a working holiday visa in 2010 when I ran out of money in Asia. I went to Australia to make some money. And then I flew to Zimbabwe. I hated working in an office. So I flew one way to Zimbabwe, quit my job and started my blog. And that was during the World Cup 2010. So that was summer 2010 at some point anyway. By the end of that year, by the end of 2010, I was making like $500 a month from advertisers contacting me and asking me to put adverts on my blog, right? Maybe $400 or $500 a month. But my salary when I was teaching English was only like $600 or $700.
Okay.
So I thought, wow, I can just about survive on this. I don't live a flashy life. So I flew back to Thailand and thought I'm going to try to make this work. And then 2011, I didn't travel much, actually. I only went to 2 or 3 countries in 2011 because I just worked on my blog. And then 2012, I was making maybe through being in Bangkok for a year, I had got my revenue from my blog up to like 2 or 3 grand a month, which was loads of money to me. I was like, this is fucking brilliant. But I always thought every month that I made 2 or 3 grand, I'm like, this is too good to be true. I don't have a job. I'm making like triple what I used to make teaching English. This will be the last month it ever happens. Next month it won't. I'm not going to make anything. And I always thought like that, and I still feel like that, which is why I'm very careful with my money. And in 2012, then I'd been earning 2 or 3 grand a year for about a year, 2 or 3 grand a month for about a year, like a normal kind of Western salary. And I thought I'm going to go overland from Bangkok all the way back to Ireland without flying. I had about 20 grand saved from that 2 or 3 grand a month that I was making. And I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I've got about 20 grand saved, overland from Bangkok all the way back to Ireland. It'll probably cost me 10, 15, worst case scenario, 20 grand. So I have enough money to get all the way back to Ireland to be the trip of a lifetime. I've had a good couple of years making money online. I'm not rich, but what a ride it's been.
Yeah.
But to cut a long story short, then I did that journey overland, Trans-Siberian train, all that was brilliant. It took me a year like flying, and I worked every evening. I would travel to all these cool shit during the day, and I would go to a coffee shop at night and get my laptop out, and I would work till like 2 or 3 in the morning from like 7 or 8 at night, and I would sell more ads. And because I was working so hard, I would just pick up and pick up and pick up. And so I left Thailand kind of February, March 2012. And I was in Portugal. I flew my mum out to Portugal to see me when I was nearly back in Ireland in the winter of 2012, so at the end of the year. And I was making like 30, 40, 50 grand a month from ads on my blog by the end of the year. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
So you actually left and ended up back with more money than what you started with?
Couldn't believe it, mate. I'd never seen money like that. And then I banked 100 grand sterling and then bought this apartment I'm in right now in cash, flew back to Thailand and bought this.
It's mad, isn't it? Like you said, though, for as quick as you make it, you can lose it just as quick. So it's almost like in the back of your head, you're going, well, we better do it now, because if we don't do it, we might not be able to do it. So let's just fucking do it all as quick as we can.
And that is one thing that comes across. You still have that humbleness and humility. Like, you haven't just become this, oh, have you seen how much money I've got? Like, go fuck yourself. You do still have that, I guess, mentality of the upbringing you've had, which I guess makes you appreciate it more.
Well, just from where I come from, I'm not a flash guy. Like, my shirts from H&M, my shorts are like 10 years old. My missus just fixed a hole in them because I've had them for like 7 years or whatever. I try to invest my money because I know that online game, like I said earlier, you can make money quickly, but it could be over tomorrow. So you got to be careful with your money. I see all these Instagrammers and YouTubers, especially the younger generation, being flash with their Rolexes and their Lamborghinis, and I think, mate, if you get kicked off that platform or whatever, you'll be back working in Subway, and then what are you going to do?
It's literally that, and it's all your eggs in one basket scenario. It's like, if you solely rely on Instagram as your revenue stream and that's it, we've seen it with the YouTubers and all that sort of stuff. They make one fuck up, one wrong remark, one black mark, and that's it. It's over. You're done. I
guess it's the difference between selling a lifestyle and actually living that lifestyle. And I guess because you are authentically doing it, you don't feel the need to try and be flash about it. Whereas those people are trying to get to a point where they authentically have it, and because they don't, it's like, let's just perpetuate the image to hopefully get there in the end. I think that's what's fascinating about your story, because rather than doing it that way, I want to be rich and live this life, so I need to do it this way. You just did that and happened to get rich from doing it, from actually living it.
I don't feel very rich, mate. Like, I bought a couple of investment properties in the UK. I bought this place. I got some investments with a fund manager, and I'm building a really nice house in Thailand at the moment. Like, I've been really careful with my money since I started making it. 2012, and I just told you that story when I started going wild. It's been 8 years that I've been making really good money now, and although obviously with COVID it's been shite this year, but and now I'm building a big villa in the north of Thailand. Finally, like, I'm building my dream house. And the reason I can afford to build that dream house, you can see it on my Instagram. It's one of the little highlights. It's with the architect at the moment. The reason I can afford to build this like dream house is that I've been so careful with money for years. I don't waste it buying bottles of whiskey in the pub to show off. You know what I mean? And I would really recommend anyone who makes online money to do the same. Be careful.
Are you based in Chiang Mai then, or did you say you've got a place in Bangkok?
The apartment the apartment I'm in right now is in Bangkok, but I'm moving to Chiang Mai. Yeah,
Right,
I bought the land. I bought the land about 6 months ago, and the architect's plan it at the moment. We'll start building hopefully next month.
That's cool.
Something small little project during lockdown. You know, just
Build a house.
something to do.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you're not building it yourself. To be fair, I mean, that's
Can't build a house, but I'll watch a YouTube
Fuck it.
video and go for it.
let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you're not building it yourself. That's a bit disappointing, if I'm honest.
Not how to knock nail in a wall. So no.
Yeah, but you can't swim, and you couldn't run.
True.
And you couldn't ride a bike.
Right.
So, I mean, it's anything that you... I bet your missus loves it because you go, oh, no, I can't do that. She goes, bullshit.
Yeah.
You know you can. You just don't want to. It's true, though. You know what I mean? Like, you set yourself up for that. It's like, well...
If you can climb all the mountains and you can do the washing up.
Yeah, exactly. Can't do that, love. I mean, but you can. You best sort it out. Fuck. I've never been to Thailand. I want to go to Thailand.
Cool.
I have wanted to go.
We'll go. We'll come join you. We'll come and have a beer with you.
I'll come and build your house.
Yeah.
You do build houses, actually.
I do
to be
build
fair,
houses.
So you could build his house.
I could. I mean, I say I build houses. I do bits.
You do bits.
I do bits. I build the foundations for houses.
That's the important bit.
I know. I drive all the machines.
You can dig a hole.
I drive all the machines. I just don't really like manual labour.
That's fair.
I just don't really like getting dirty.
I think we're about that time.
Are we done?
I think
Is it an hour
we
and a
are
half?
about hour
Jesus,
45.
We're an hour and...
We need to ask the big question.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I forgot. We have a ongoing debate regarding guests, and
I'm winning so far.
it doesn't always go my way.
I'm winning so far.
If, in a hypothetical world, Mr. Johnny Ward, there was a fight between a bear and a gorilla, neither of them have to die. We've got to point that out now
Yeah,
because
we
people
have.
get sad about
Ethically,
that. Ethically, they don't have to die.
one of them taps out.
If there was a fight between a gorilla and a bear, who do you think would win?
Gorilla, 100%.
I love this man.
Why?
I love this
What's
man.
your thought process between a gorilla winning? I mean, you've probably seen both,
Yeah, I've never seen a bear actually,
right?
but I've seen a gorilla in Rwanda. Yeah, they're they can just rip you apart, can't they?
Have you seen a bear? Like, have you
I've never
actually seen
seen a
like,
red panda.
pictures of a bear with their massive claws that are like 4 inches long and their paws that are the size of your head?
Don't let him get in your head, Johnny. Like, you've made your decision.
What's the consensus?
Fucking gorilla.
So far, it's 6-2 now.
Always gorilla.
That includes us as well. So he's had one vote.
It's never bear.
He's had one vote for Bear.
And
I've had Pritchard, Nick Hamilton.
I just think
Monster
if
Girls,
you Google
Johnny.
Kodiak bear, you would change your mind immediately.
You know what? You're right.
The only gorilla that's ever going to beat a Kodiak bear is literally King Kong.
No.
That's it.
No.
No, it's bullshit.
That's why King
I've
Kong
never
was a...
heard of
Seriously, it's like the size of a house.
Ignore him.
A Kodiak
He's
bear
an
is.
idiot.
They're colossal.
I'll Google it.
I would,
Come back.
and I think
Come back to
I
the
think I'll get that.
Well, I was going to say, you are always welcome on our podcast. We'd love to have you. If you want to speak to us, maybe after you've done your crazy next trip you've got planned about rowing across the Atlantic, or especially once you've done the South Pole and those the other 3 peaks as well. We'd definitely love to have you back. Hopefully, once all this COVID ridiculousness is gone as well, we can do it in the same room as well.
Too famous by then, boys.
We'll never be too famous for you, Johnny.
We will, or you will. No chance.
Well, he's already famous and he's talking to us
No,
now.
that's true. No,
So-
we do want to say a massive thank you. I mean, I did literally drop you a message on Instagram.
Well, honestly, he sent me a screenshot of saying this guy looks interesting, and I was like, I followed him for 4 years. I was like, get him. So the fact that he dropped you a message, you were like, absolutely, yeah, I'm down. Genuinely do really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we
Look
do.
forward to following your story going on from here as well, and getting that pass for Tibet off you as well in the future.
I tell you what, though, with Pritchard,
Yeah.
it'll be, you know,
Oh, he'll keep it interesting.
an interesting trip.
So
That's
saying
for
that,
sure.
I think he can match Pritchard here.
Yeah.
I do. I think Pritchard's going to be like, this guy's fucking insane.
He's a cool dude.
Well, let's wait and see. I'm looking forward to meeting him.
He's a cool dude.
Well, thank you again for your time, and good luck to you with all your future crazy plans.
Incredible.
No worries,
man.
boys. Thanks.
Take
Thanks
it
very
easy.
much.
Thank you.
Take care, Johnny.
Catch you later, boys.